Young man was hired by a bank, being young, and knew he was finding his way around in that network and clientele. One day, his boss told him, well, if Mr. So-and-so calls, tell him I'm not here. The young man says, oh, are you planning to leave the office for a little while? No, I'm staying here, but I just don't want to talk to that man right now. And the young man was kind of perplexed to know what to do. And so he asked his boss, now let me make sure I understand. Do you want me to lie for you? And of course, the boss blew up. He's outraged, angry with the young man. Then the young man responded, I think in a very good way. He said, boss, you ought to be happy because I won't lie for you. Isn't it safe to assume that I won't lie to you? If I won't lie for you, I won't lie to you. I won't lie. I like that response. Someone online was seeking how to spell words. And they was curious with a situation that was happening. They looked to find out, you can go and you look up words. And, if someone has died or not, you can say, is John Wayne still alive? And you find out exactly when he died and how old he was and so forth. And sometimes there's these announcements of someone's death, and it's not true. Well, because of a worldwide catastrophic event, some of the most popular words that people were searching, you say, Google, what does so-and-so mean? And they were looking for the word refugee, pandemic, a tsunami. And if you think back, you can understand why some of these words were being searched out to see what was happening. At that time, the most popular lookup for the Merriam-Webster online dictionary was the word integrity. They gave the definition as firm adherence to a code of especially moral and artistic values. And it described those who are unwilling to be bribed or morally corrupted. But I think we need to ask a question about this. Why would that word be at the top of the list? Could it possibly be because integrity was so lacking in today's society that many didn't know what character traits looked like someone's life? Integrity? What is that? In His Word, we find individuals and examples of integrity. I take us back to Genesis, the life of Joseph. Remember all that he went through, the helping of the two men in prison, and one ended up dying. The other said, when I go back into service, I'll remind the king about you. And for 2 years, there's nothing said. But all of that time, when he came into Potiphar's house, it says that he was a great example because the man put Joseph overseeing his house and all that he had. Genesis 39, verse 5. And here comes the temptation. When Potiphar's wife propositioned him, Joseph refused. And here's his question. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against my God? You see, no matter what happens in our life, we have to live with self. I wonder, do people convince themselves that they didn't lie? Or they push it under their carpet? Do they just ignore it? Does it not come up? I lied. I did wrong. Here's Joseph knowing God's standards. And he wanted to maintain his integrity by standing right, even at the cost of his freedom. Because of her accusation, he was thrown into jail. Genesis 39, verse 20. What would you do for $10 million? Just anything? If you didn't have to work for it? But what if there was a stipulation on there that was something quite different? Well, Americans were asked the same question. And 2/3 of Americans that answered this question at least agreed with one of these scenarios. For $10 million, they would be willing to abandon their family. You know how many answered that? 25%. Many would abandon their church. 25%. 23% would sell themselves for a week or more. Many would give up their American citizenship. 16%. 16% people would leave their mate, their spouse. Watch out. And many would also withhold testimony if a murderer could go free. That's 10%. Even 7%, if they were offered $10 million, they would kill a stranger. Commit murder. And lastly, 3% would even put their children up for adoption. Can you imagine the kind of society would be bribed to do such things? Honesty with self is so important. Honesty must be woven in the very fabric of our character if we are to have an effective influence with Christ. Even the secular world recognizes the importance of integrity. Oh, deception takes so many forms of action, whether an outright verbal lie or a cover-up. Apostle Paul admonishes us, put away lying. Speak every man truth with his neighbor, Ephesians 4, verse 25. As Christians, the importance of putting to death our pride and humbling ourselves like children, Matthew chapter 18, verse 1 through 4, which I made reference to this morning. We all know that humility and honesty is a good thing. But sometimes we struggle with real world application. Sometimes we fail. I'd like to submit 3 things tonight. Number 1, seek to do good with no credit. We look around and we see people, they want to toot their own horn, they want to be praised. In fact, they're insulted if they are forgotten for something they've done for someone or a group or society. You know, it can be hard to not receive the credit that you deserve. It can even be more infuriating if someone else takes the credit for your good work. even in that situation, could you remain quiet? Or would you announce it to the world? You know what so-and-so did to me? He took my glory. While we should always seek to give honor to whom honor is due, receiving honor for our work cannot be our aim. Our aim is, as a people, is always to give God the glory. Number 2, ask questions. I love my grandmother Knight. She set a goal in her life that every day she would want to learn something new. How about us? Do we ask questions about situations, about anything we don't know? But more important than asking questions is doing something with the answer. Somewhere along the way, many people stop asking questions. They just don't care. Some stop seeking new information because they feel that they've learned it all. I know enough. It's like when individuals say, you know what, I've been baptized. And they're not serving, they're not involved, they're not worshiping. They carry on life as they are on permanent vacation. Just because you're baptized doesn't mean you're saved. Baptism puts you into Christ and puts you in a job to be involved in the spiritual things of the world. Some stop asking questions because they don't want anyone to know that they don't know the answer. Either way, pride is the culprit. So we need to be people who ask questions and are open to the answers, willing to learn something new and to apply it to our lives. Have you stopped reading God's Word? Looking, preparing, making sure there's nothing left undone in your spiritual life? Thirdly, confess sin. In my experience, most Christians are very good at admitting that they have sin in their past. One man asked the preacher, "Preacher, would you preach on and would name a certain sin?" You know how the preacher answered? "Tell me a sin in your life and I will preach on it." Oh, we always like for the other person to be pounced on, to be corrected. What about us? Where many fall short is failing to confess sins that are not in their past, but in their present. Not wanting anyone to know what they're struggling with. I feel like we don't want to make a confession for the fear of how people will respond to us after that. If the preacher confesses the sin of lying, will everybody quit trusting him? Humility isn't just a word or a thought or an idea. It is to be lived out and modeled in practice. I was reading something Thursday. A real life situation where this lady was telling about the time when she was back in school. And she said one day there was a crowd surrounding some commotion in the middle of the hall. And she reached through and saw that there was a fight. And I've seen videos of people, encouraging those who are in the fight. Hit him harder, knock his head off. And they didn't step in to stop it. Well, this girl noticed no one stepped in to stop that fight. And the boy was injured. And to her dismay, she heard a few days later that that boy, the weaker boy, died from his injuries because of that fight. And she tells about how she felt. Why did I not step up? Why did I not try to stop the fight? From now on, if there's a situation that demands a decision to act, I am going to do it. And sure enough, she was put to the test. One day in traveling, there was a crash. And a car went off the bridge. And it went into a river. And you know how a car does. The hood and the front go first. And maybe if it doesn't sink completely, the back is up. And somehow the wife in the car escapes and starts crying to the people up above. My husband is trapped. Someone help. Well, that lady was watching, and she didn't hesitate. She jumped from the bridge into the water, and she tried several times to open the door. And the pressure of the water wouldn't let her. And she came to the back glass. She tried to break it. And at that moment, she said, I need help. She cried up to the bridge. Come help me. There's a man dying. He's drowning. No one jumped in. She yelled again. And I don't like this, but she cursed them. Don't you know what's happening? If you don't jump in and help, you're going to let someone die. Finally, one man jumped in, another man jumped in, and those three were able to find a way to break the glass. And the man, just in the nick of time, was released from that tomb and came forth. And that wife came to that woman and said, if you had not have acted, my husband would have drowned. Can we live with ourselves when we remain actionless? When we remain aloof from our neighbors, our friends? We can't afford it. Let's think about these things. I believe it is good for all of us. The measure of a man is his ability to tell the truth, even if the odds are against him. It is said of Abraham Lincoln that the last years of his presidency, he had to make a lot of decisions that made people not like him. He writes the words, I had to make these decisions. And if it ended up that I had no friends, no more friends left in my life, then there was one friend that was so important. A friend to himself. He had to live up to what he knew was right and to do it. Tonight, I encourage any of us, if we fail, no matter what it is, let's confess and ask for the support and encouragement of our brothers and sisters. Honesty with self. Come on, stand while we sing.